A wealthy woman left her dog at a gas station. The poor single dad who found it uncovered a secret. The fluorescent lights of Murphy's gas station flickered against the Wyoming twilight as Marcus Thompson pulled his beat-up Ford pickup to pump number 3. The engine coughed twice before dying a sound that reminded him daily of the repairs he couldn't afford. He rubbed his tired eyes and checked his phone. 7:47 p.m. Emma would be waiting for dinner, probably doing homework at their small kitchen table, pretending she wasn't worried about the overdue rent notice. As Marcus stepped out, the November wind cut through his worn jacket like a blade. He'd driven 40 miles to this remote station because gas was 12 cents cheaper here. Every penny mattered when you're 3 weeks behind on bills and your 8-year-old daughter needed new winter boots. That's when he heard it. A soft whimpering coming from behind the dumpster. "Hello?" Marcus called out, his voice echoing in the empty lot. The only other vehicle was a black Mercedes S-Class with out-of-state plates, its engine still ticking as it cooled. The whimpering grew louder. Marcus approached the dumpster cautiously and found a small golden retriever, no older than a year, shivering in the cold. The dog's coat was pristine, clearly well-groomed, and around its neck hung an expensive-looking collar embedded with what appeared to be genuine diamonds. "Hey there, buddy," Marcus said softly, crouching down. The dog immediately came to him, tail wagging despite its obvious distress. "Where's your owner?" Marcus looked around the empty station. The Mercedes was gone. He must have missed seeing it leave while he was pumping gas. The dog had no identification tag, just that elaborate collar that probably cost more than Marcus made in a month. "Sir, you buying something or just loitering?" The gas station attendant, a gruff man in his 60s, emerged from the store. "Someone left this dog," Marcus explained, gently petting the animal. "You see who was driving that Mercedes?" "Yeah, some fancy lady. Real uptight type. She was on her phone, yelling at someone about contracts and deadlines. Left in a hurry when her call ended. Didn't even notice the dog wander off." The attendant shrugged. "Happens more than you'd think. Rich folks and their problems." Marcus felt a familiar pang in his chest. Since losing his job at the lumber mill 8 months ago, he'd been surviving on odd jobs and his pride. The last thing he needed was another mouth to feed. But looking at the dog's trusting eyes, he couldn't just leave it here. "Come on, buddy. Let's get you somewhere warm." The drive home was quiet except for the dog's occasional whimper from the passenger seat. Marcus lived in a small trailer on the outskirts of Casper, Wyoming, a far cry from the suburban house he'd lost after the mill closed. Emma would be thrilled to see a dog, but Marcus worried about the cost of feeding it until he could find its owner. "Dad." Emma's voice rang out as Marcus opened the trailer door. She was indeed at the kitchen table, her math homework spread out before her. "You're late. I was starting to..." She stopped mid-sentence when she saw the dog. "Oh my gosh, Dad, whose dog is this? Found him at the gas station. Looks like someone left him behind." Marcus watched as Emma immediately dropped to her knees, and the dog bounded toward her as if they were old friends. "He's beautiful. What's his name?" Emma asked, giggling as the dog licked her face. "Don't know. No tag, just this fancy collar." Marcus knelt down to examine the collar more closely. In the better light of their small kitchen, he could see that what he'd mistaken for diamonds were actually crystals arranged in an intricate pattern. But there was something else, a small, almost invisible seam running along the collar's interior. "Dad, look at this," Emma said, running her fingers through the dog's fur. "There's something written here." Marcus looked where Emma was pointing. Engraved in tiny letters on the collar's metal plate, barely visible, were the words, "Trust the process, VH." "VH," Marcus murmured. "Must be the owner's initials." As Emma played with the dog, Marcus noticed something odd about the collar's weight. It felt heavier than it should, even with the crystals. Curiosity getting the better of him, he examined the seam more carefully. With gentle pressure, a hidden compartment opened. revealing a small USB drive and a folded piece of paper. Marcus's hands trembled as he unfolded the paper. Written in elegant handwriting were the words, "If you're reading this, then my worst fears have come true." The drive contains everything you need to know about the Holloway Foundation. Trust no one from the family. Victoria. "Dad, what's wrong?" Emma asked, noticing his expression. Marcus quickly pocketed the USB drive and paper. "Nothing, sweetheart. Just trying to figure out how to find this dog's owner." But as Marcus tucked Emma into bed that night, the dog curled up beside her. His mind raced with questions. Who was Victoria? What was the Holloway Foundation? And why did this expensive dog end up abandoned at a gas station in the middle of nowhere? Unable to sleep, Marcus retrieved his old laptop from the closet. The ancient machine took 5 minutes to boot up, but eventually he inserted the USB drive. His heart pounded as a single folder appeared on screen. Holloway Foundation Confidential. Inside were dozens of financial documents, email screenshots, and recorded phone conversations. As Marcus began to read, his eyes widened. The Holloway Foundation wasn't just any charity, it was one of the largest humanitarian organizations in the United States, managing billions in donations meant for disaster relief and poverty alleviation. But according to these documents, most of that money was being funneled into shell companies and offshore accounts. The foundation was a front for massive embezzlement, and at the center of it all was a name Marcus recognized from news headlines: Richard Holloway, the foundation's respected CEO and philanthropist. A chill ran down Marcus's spine as he read. Further, Victoria Holloway, Richard's sister and the foundation's financial director, had been gathering evidence of the fraud for months. Her final email, dated just 3 days ago, was to someone named David Chun at the FBI. "David, I have everything we need to expose Richard and the board. The evidence is secure, and I'm ready to testify. I'm driving to Denver tomorrow to meet with you. After 15 years of watching my brother steal from people who needed help the most, I finally have the courage to do what's right. I've made arrangements for Bentley, my dog, to be cared for during the trial proceedings. If anything happens to me, know that I tried to do the right thing. Victoria." Marcus leaned back in his chair, his mind spinning. Victoria Holloway was coming forward as a whistleblower against her own brother's charity fraud. But she'd left her dog at a gas station in the middle of nowhere while driving to meet with the FBI. That seemed odd. Unless ... Marcus single quotes s, blood ran cold. What if Victoria never made it to Denver? What if someone discovered her plan? The next morning, Marcus called the local police station. "Casper Police. This is Sergeant Williams. Hi, I'm calling about a missing person. Victoria Holloway. She might have been driving through the area a few days ago." There was a pause. "Sir, can you tell me why you're asking about Ms. Holloway?" Marcus's heart sank. Did something happen to her? Ms. Holloway's car was found yesterday morning in a ravine off Interstate 25, about 30 miles from where you're calling. She didn't survive the crash. We're treating it as a potential homicide. How did you know to call about her?" Marcus looked at the dog, who was sleeping peacefully next to Emma as she ate her cereal. "I found her dog." Detective Sarah Martinez arrived at Marcus's trailer within the hour, accompanied by FBI agent David Chun, the same man Victoria had been planning to meet. Marcus had never seen Emma's eyes so wide as she watched the officials examine the dog and the evidence Victoria had hidden. "Mr. Thompson, you may have just solved one of the biggest charity fraud cases in federal history," Agent Chun said, carefully bagging the USB drive. "Victoria Holloway contacted us 6 months ago about irregularities at her brother's foundation. We've been building a case, but we needed someone on the inside with access to the financial records. So her car crash wasn't an accident?" Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. Detective Martinez shook her head grimly. Victoria's brake lines were cut. Someone knew she was coming forward and decided to stop her. But they didn't count on her hiding the evidence with her dog. Why? Would she leave Bentley at a gas station though? Emma asked, gently stroking the dog's head. That seems mean. Agent Chun smiled sadly. Victoria wasn't abandoning Bentley. According to her phone records, she received a threatening call just before she stopped for gas. She must have realized she was in danger and decided to hide the evidence the only way she could by leaving Bentley somewhere safe, hoping someone would find him and discover what she'd hidden. Marcus felt a chill. She sacrificed herself to expose the truth. And because of that sacrifice, and your decision to help a lost dog, we can now arrest Richard Holloway and everyone involved in the fraud, Agent Chun continued. The evidence Victoria gathered shows they've stolen over $200 million meant for hurricane victims, earthquake relief, and homeless shelters. Over the next few weeks, Marcus watched the news coverage with fascination and horror. Richard Holloway, once hailed as a humanitarian hero, was arrested along with 12 other foundation executives. The scandal dominated headlines for weeks as investigators uncovered a web of corruption that had been operating for over a decade. But the biggest surprise came when Agent Chun called Marcus 3 weeks later. Mr. Thompson, I need you to come to Denver. There's something about Victoria's will that concerns you. Marcus made the drive to Denver with Emma and Bentley. They decided to keep the dog, as Emma had become inseparable from him. At the FBI office, Marcus was introduced to Victoria's lawyer, a stern woman named Margaret Foster. Mr. Thompson, Victoria updated her will just days before her death, Margaret explained. She left specific instructions that if anything happened to her, and if someone found Bentley with the evidence, that person would receive her entire estate as thanks for helping expose the truth. Marcus nearly choked on his coffee. I'm sorry, what? Victoria's estate is worth approximately $12 million. She inherited it from her parents, kept it separate from the foundation, and never trusted her brother with it. She knew that whoever found Bentley would be someone with integrity, someone who would do the right thing with the evidence rather than try to profit from it. Emma grabbed Marcus's hand. Dad, does that mean we're rich? Marcus was speechless. After months of struggling to pay rent, of watching Emma wear shoes with holes in them, of choosing between groceries and electricity bills, he couldn't process what he was hearing. There's more, Margaret continued. Victoria specifically requested that if the person who found Bentley had children, a trust fund be established for their education. Emma's college tuition is now fully covered, along with graduate school, if she chooses. Tears welled up in Marcus's eyes. Why would she do this for strangers? Agent Chun answered, because Victoria believed in the power of ordinary people to do extraordinary things. She wrote in her letter that she hoped her final act would not only expose the corruption but also help someone who genuinely needed it. 6 months later, Marcus stood in the backyard of his new home, a modest but comfortable house with a big yard for Bentley to run in. Emma was inside, practicing piano lessons she'd always dreamed of taking. The local newspaper had called him a hero, but Marcus knew the real hero was Victoria Holloway, who had sacrificed everything to protect money meant for people in need. Marcus had used part of Victoria's inheritance to start a scholarship fund for single parents returning to school. He'd also established the Victoria Holloway Memorial Foundation, ensuring that every dollar went directly to the people who needed it most, with complete transparency and regular audits. Dad, dinner's ready. Emma called from the kitchen as Marcus walked toward the house, Bentley running circles around his feet. He thought about the chain of events that had brought them here. A wealthy woman's courage, a dog's loyalty, and a single father's decision to help a creature in need had exposed a massive fraud and changed their lives forever. Sometimes, Marcus reflected, the most important moments in life come when you're not looking for them, when you're just trying to do the right thing. even when it's inconvenient. "Coming, sweetheart," Marcus called back, scratching Bentley behind the ears. "We're coming." As they sat down for dinner, Marcus looked at his daughter, no longer worried about rent or winter boots or whether they'd have enough food. Emma was laughing at something Bentley had done, her eyes bright with the security and joy every child deserved. Victoria Holloway had kept her promise. In her final act, she had indeed helped someone who needed it most, proving that sometimes the most powerful force in the world is simple human kindness, and that fate really does sometimes come with 4 paws and a secret worth millions. The Holloway Foundation scandal had exposed the corruption of the wealthy and powerful, but it had also revealed something more important, that ordinary people, when given the chance, will choose to do the right thing. And sometimes that choice changes everything. The end.
Thank you for watching this story unfold with us here on M&A The Story Unfolds. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new tale. We'd love to know where you're watching. Leave a comment below and tell us what part of the world you're joining us from. Your support means everything. See you in the next story.